the meeting, call to order this meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Public Works for August 7th, 2023, held in the Jeannie Seelig Room. Attending tonight, all board members are here. Myself, Don Gutowski, Kim Lobdell, Dave Wilborn, Bill Jessup, and City Director of Public Works, Tim Volker. Public appearances for non-agenda items. I don't believe we have anyone signed up to talk, or no one is signed in here. So that'll move us to agenda item 3A, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the July 17th minutes? Moved by Lobdell. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Wilborn. Questions, additions, modifications? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All are in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Next, we have 4Alpha, review of utility P-card purchases and checks. I will open it up to board members for questions.
I just have one, and it's on check number 602-593325 on 6-2. I need an explanation, I guess, of this means it's up in the 5,000 grand. What does ATS Specialized LLC stand for?
What does ATS stand for, the acronym?
Yes, I know, I should probably know it, but I
I
know it.
guess I have the same question. But CDL, does that mean like the CDL license somebody?
Yeah, so the city's recently implemented a CDL program for, if we were to hire a maintenance worker in our streets department, utility, or parks that doesn't have a CDL classification, that the city will pay up to $5,000 for them to attend training to get their CDL, and then I believe that the policy states they're to stay 3 years after receiving that CDL. If they do happen to leave prior to the 3 years, they would have to reimburse the city at a prorated rate. So this CDL was for Marshall Charlesworth, and the company's just ATS. I don't know exactly what the acronym's for, but that's the company he went to get trained and tested.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the fact that the amount exceeds 5,000, is that?
It might be the 5,000 for the training and then 375 for the to actually get your license. I thought there was some kind of a registration fee or something on top of that.
Yeah, and without the invoice, when these invoices come through, the posting date was back in early June, over 2 months ago. When that comes through, all the supplemental information and breakdown of the cost was there. I'd have to, I guess, go back to that transaction in our financial system to see exactly how that $5,375 is broken out.
There must be a lot of training for it.
It's expensive training. That's kind of why the city's requiring them to stay 3 years or pay it back if they leave before, because to spend $5,000 on an employee to get trained is a lot, but it's good for their career and progression to help us through the city, and hopefully stay here and help us. It's a good program for that.
It's important that they do it too.
Yep.
Just not try to do it on their own. You learn a lot of other things that common sense you probably should have known, but.
It's liability issue too. That we have qualified people that are driving this vehicle.
Yeah, and it allows for flexibility in our operations. The more people you can have, if someone's out on vacation, it doesn't impact the job, because someone else could jump into the truck or help out and move a trailer or whatnot, piece of equipment. So,
Anyone else have any questions? I had one down in the general ledger. It's sorry for my ignorance. It's the second one on there, 623-125-292 to Hammersley Stone. It's stone for digs. So is that when we have to dig, and then we have to put stone, say we have a water leak and we got to dig out and we got to put stone back in? What do you? I'm sorry, I should have sent you an email on this.
yeah, I believe that, and I can clarify this, but I believe that's for our streets department, just exactly what you said, miscellaneous jobs that our in-house does, whether it's the streets team for if they put in a culvert or, need to replace a road patch or something like that, or even our utility side or parks, that's just rock that we purchase to keep on hand in time of need when we need to do something in-house. But I'll clarify that with Mark. Okay.
No, don't spend more time on it. Thank you. It's a good explanation. Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, the report from the Director of Public Works. Tim?
Sure, I'll start out with some staff updates. We currently have 2 openings. It's the utilities engineer remains open. That's Tracy's old position. And then also the environmental engineering technician remains open. So what Tracy and I have been doing is been working with HR on revising the job description for the engineering technician with the city. The city's only had an engineering technician 2 job, which we don't know why there wasn't a 1 or a 3. So we've been working with HR to kind of come up with a job description that, we can post one job description, and if someone has the qualifications to come in at a 1 level, they could do that, or we could hire someone that's a little more qualified at 2, or get someone that's qualified at 3, and they get paid accordingly. Another advantage of having multiple layers is for career progression. So it keeps the engineering technicians here. So if you come in at a 2, you can move up to a 3. It's not like you're stuck at that position. So we think that will also help with keeping the people we hire. So we're hoping to, right now it's being evaluated, or we just sent it to HR. They're going to send it to a consultant to kind of evaluate what pay grades each of these positions go into. And we're hoping to have this in front of the Personnel Committee in September for approval. And then right after that, we would post, if we haven't hired someone in the engineering technician position open right now. So if we find someone qualified, obviously we'd move forward without that. If we don't, and the Personnel Committee approves it, we'll repost the position at all 3 levels. So.
And this is the 3 levels. This was too late to get into the staffing study, or is this going to, are we going to read about this?
Yeah, it was too late to get into the staffing study. But, I talked it over with Chad, the city administrator, and HR, and we feel this is a good way to move forward. With, like I mentioned, it opens up the pool to candidates and also will help keep the people we hire because it allows a career progression. So we also have an engineering technician trainee too, where they could come on, do the trainee program for a year, and then they would jump into the engineering technician 1. So Samantha Schultz right now, we hired her back in February as an engineering technician trainee, so she's currently been in that program, and in February would move up if, as long as she's still here, which she's been doing a great job, and we're happy to have her. So she's really been a successful candidate that we hired in that. So we would have a trainee 1, 2, and 3 now. So
Thank you.
as far as project updates, Sain Road is still under construction. We're hoping by the end of the month that the Lacey Road intersection and Sain will be open. Contractor started pouring curb last week. We'll be pouring curb the remaining part of this week, and then once that's completed, their paving team will come on site and complete the paving by the end of this month. And then that intersection will reopen, and Sain Road and East Sherrill will close for September and then be open by October is the current projected schedule. And then Lacey Road and Seminole Highway, they started pouring curb and sidewalk the last couple weeks. We're anticipating Lacey Road and Seminole Highway, that intersection, to be completed by the end of this month too, in time for school to in time for the school opening. And then our street resurfacing project, which are both, there's 2 agenda items on that later tonight for the construction contract, the award of that to Payne and Dolan. We're hoping to have that start this month and then to have it wrap up by October. And then the Fitchburg Road reconstruction project we're still continuing to work on the design of that project. Anyone have any questions?
I have one. Did we have a water break on Williamsburg about a week ago? Seemed like I was there and there was water and there was like, I think it was a.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a main break or if they were doing.
Oh, were they doing some flushing?
No, the flushing's been complete. I believe we completed that back in June, but I don't know if a curb stop or something happened.
I bet it was a curb stop, yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think it was a main break, but just something in regards to a service along that road.
Okay.
Any new subdivisions or the ones we have going are all moving along without issues?
Yeah, so Terravesa is moving along. Also, I believe Hartung has submitted a draft plat that we're currently under review. So you'll be seeing something regarding that. That's at the southeast corner of Lacey Road in Syene. So that's really the only big one that's coming. But it has slowed up. The development department has noticed kind of a slowdown.
Probably interest rates somewhat related to.
High Point Reserve, how's that moving along?
Yeah, Highfield's still moving along.
Yeah.
You have, how many more phone calls have you taken from the people in, when you're off of Seminole, with the cars coming through their neighborhood?
Stoner Prairie.
It seems like they just, there's no end, you know, I understand why they're upset, but.
And that should be alleviated here shortly in
That's what
3 weeks. So that, you know, with construction, there is an inconvenience. It's messy, but you know, hopefully the end product is kind of what you look for, and that'll help a lot once we put in these improvements. So
Keep our eye on the finish line. I know you've taken a lot of phone calls and a lot of people have been upset, but when I've gone through, I didn't think people were speeding or anything. It's just, you know, a fair amount of cars want to go through there.
yeah, and you know, they're not used to that, which I understand. And at certain times of the day, it's heavy, kind of when the shift gets off for sub-zero.
Yeah,
I think
of
they
course.
notice a heavy influx of vehicles through there. But you know, Ross and Ned from the police department, I think have done an excellent job at trying to listen to the community and put up yield signs and some additional measures out on Lacey and Seminole with you know, barricades and road or additional signage.
My wife and I went to bike to Paola yesterday and listened to the music, and we did the farmers market. And on our way back, we were coming up on on the Badger State Trail, and there was like the one farm plus the O'Brien residence, and we saw a car go north on Seminole, and we're like, where's this guy going?
They went through it.
Very well could have. By the time we got there, we couldn't see what had happened, but it's highly unlikely that they turned off into one of those two places, you know.
No, they moved the barricades and went around it. Well, it'd be nice if the officer was there when it happened. That's a pretty hefty fine. And I would have no sympathy for it. But anything else for Tim? Thank you.
Any extra coordination needed with schools and stuff, if schedules?
Yeah, I believe Ross had reached out to the supervisor that oversees the bus routes just to see if the contractor did need a day or two, what would need to happen. I haven't followed up with Ross to see what's transpired from that, but just in case there is a delay of a couple days, you know, how that would impact the school district and what would need to happen in order to what messaging and all that needs to get out. So we have touched base with, I just need to follow up with Ross to see how that conversation went.
All right, let's move on then. Takes us to agenda item 6 alpha, resolution R 14323, authorizing acceptance of 2023 ARPA street improvement bid. Have a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Lobdell, do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Bill. Tim, I'll let you run through this. We have there's a change in this, so we're going to require a 2/3 council vote, not just because it's over $1 million, but because of the transferring of funds.
Yeah, so the 2023 capital projects fund included $1 million to be spent on the street resurfacing within the qualified census tracts, the QCT, using ARPA funds. So we advertised this project back on June 16th and June 22nd, and also posted on Quest CDN. And then on June 29th, we received 2 sealed bids for the project, and Payne and Dolan was the low bid at just a shade over $1 million, which was over budget. So as Chair Herbst mentioned, this resolution also includes a budget amendment that is what we're looking at doing, and staff recommends, is Wayland Road. The timing of Wayland Road is going to be completed after the ARPA money needs to be spent. So we're looking, right now Wayland's funded with ARPA funds, but it's not going to be finished in time to meet that requirement of spending those funds. So we're looking at bringing in the money left over, I believe in TID closure, the increment fund budget. We're looking at transferring $830,000 to fund the Wayland Road bike lane project, and then the ARPA funding that was going to fund Wayland Road, $152,000 of that $830,000 will be used to cover the overage for this project. So the city already had $1 million in ARPA funds budgeted for this project. We're looking at awarding Payne and Dolan's contract at $1,151,715. So the additional $151,000 is coming from the ARPA funds that are getting freed up from Wayland Road.
Wayland Road was $830,000. We just had the section from Seminole to Fitchburg Road that needed. That was $830,000 to add.
It was bike lanes, and then also ditch regrading because of the bike lanes that needed to be done.
Is there property acquisition as well?
Don't believe so. I believe it could be done within the right of way.
What streets are these that are in this census tract area? Like what area? Is it all one area of the city, or is it spread out?
It's throughout the city, and it's 10 streets we're looking at resurfacing within the ARPA project.
I've got a general question about resurfacing versus reconstruction. Is that a distinction we make?
Yes.
It is, okay. And it seems like resurfacing is a budget line item that's like, between $1 and $1.5 million every year, just, but between these two, we're talking about $4 million.
Correct. So the city at one point decided to use $1 million in ARPA funding to fund additional streets.
So that was for additional, above and beyond the 1.5.
And then typically, like you mentioned, that the city budgets $1 to $1.5 million a year. In 2022, the city never pulverized that type of resurfacing road. So we're using that money plus 2023 to then fund the second.
So basically, 2 years worth plus the ARPA is all going to happen
this year. Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And what's the total mileage? You said there's 10 streets for these QCT funds.
The total mileage, I do not know. I know, so in the ARPA project, there are 10 streets, and I believe in the next agenda item, the streets, let's see.
I was just looking at the pulverized square yards and figuring, a road is gonna be 8 yards wide, or at least probably.
Yeah, 29 in the
Yeah.
other one.
So if you just take the 28,000 square yards and you divide it by yards in a mile and yards wide, it came out to like 2 miles-ish, and then the next one about 4, but I don't know if
Yeah, and that sounds about right, because the city has about 140 miles, and historically, they've tried to maintain or resurface at least 4 miles a year. So if you're 2 years, you should be around 10 mile or 8 miles plus the ARPA funding, so a little over 8.
I would add, the bids were somewhat close, so we have a good spec, or a good description of the project, if they're accurate.
Going right at the current time, in the current conditions.
Yes.
And there's a lot of that. People are busy right now in general, but they're only gonna get busier, so there's really no sense in delaying.
Yeah.
We don't get into trouble when we start swapping funds from one to the other, do we?
No, we do not.
Okay.
And this is not going to affect the Wayland project at all, because we're just swapping the funding sources.
Correct, so Wayland still remains in the CIP funded at $830,000. It's just coming from the TID versus the ARPA funding. So the funding source is the only thing changing.
Only about 150,000, did you say?
No,
The ARPA is
yeah, so the city now has freed up, it'd be 830,000 minus 152.
Okay.
So then the city now can decide on how to spend that other ARPA funding not being spent by the resurfacing.
So we have
within the appropriate time frame, so you don't
Right.
lose it.
the end of this year to do the ARPA's. To spend all the
next year.
ARPA's. I thought it was
Thought it was
next
24.
year. I thought it was the end.
Yeah, see, I think it's 2024, but I'm not sure on that. But there is a time frame on when the ARPA money needs to be expensed.
I thought it was the end of 24.
I thought we had 3 years when it came out. You guys have figured it out, I'm fine.
Tim, the only thing I noticed in here, kind of funky, and they're both reputable builders, was the offset bids on a couple items. And the one in particular that rang a bell for me, because I remember maybe a couple meetings ago, we did a money diversion to an overrun for a project for, I think it was water main covers or something. And the rationale was, when we do a resurface or middle of the hole, we must put new caps on those. There's no bid item for putting new caps in there, but there is a $1 bid for adjusting those by one bidder, and the other bidder put it at 125. Everything else, they're pretty tight. But that one was a flag for me, wondering, based on the overrun we had on the other one where we put new covers on, are they anticipating to have an overrun year and just put new?
At this point, we're not anticipating. So what you're saying is Payne and Dolan was the low bidder we're going with that had the higher unit price?
No, they had the lowest. They only bid $1.
Oh,
The other one bid
That's a good-
125.
that's a good
So it's a
thing.
big. Well, but
Unless
when
you-
they're close and they're a little lower, that's great. When you have a big difference, it's a flag. They're seeing something that the other bidder did not.
No.
Yeah, or did they put a dollar placeholder in there and forget to go fill it in later on, or?
No, they just looked through the plans and figured out that they don't think they're gonna need many of them, and that's why.
yeah, it looks like the quantity was 14 valve boxes that need to be adjusted at $1. So
It was both their bids they had, the $1. So it's,
Yeah.
to me,
Figured out a
they're
way to
seeing
do it
something
efficiently.
they don't think they're gonna be doing, or they're anticipating coming in with a CCO afterwards saying, we just gotta put new ones in there.
well, and that's the line item doesn't include putting in new ones.
No.
So
I don't
new
think
ones
that
have
other
to-
bid we had a couple meetings ago, I had it either. That's why we did I thought we did a change order into one of the projects.
Yeah, I
I'd
don't
have to go
recall
back.
it being for valve boxes though.
Okay, I'd have to look back.
Okay.
We did a change order, but it was for some.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, the extended price, $14 versus $1,750 is kind of a stark difference.
You know, the way contractors are bidding nowadays, it's crazy. I mean, it's just like a lot of times they'll put tons in mobilization because they get that money up front, and then they'll put $1 for things like this that they think, you know, they'll do because they get their money right up front, whereas this is something that's at the end in mobilization. So they move things around to fit their cash flow and their working operations. It's hard to look at individual items on bids nowadays. We're running into that all over the places. You know, like on excavation, they'll put like next to nothing, and they'll put it all in mobilization. Say they agree with the quantity that's fairly close, get their money up front, and then you don't have to.
Yeah, the mobilization costs, I deal with that in my business too. And, they want you there on a certain date, and then you get there and they're not ready to start. And so you need to have those protect yourself. Although Payne and Dolan being, a
Close by, yeah.
local firm should not, we'd expect the home team discount a little bit on that, being right there.
I don't think you get too much of that nowadays.
No.
This week only, free water valve adjustments.
We'll give them free attendance to the
Yeah, see, because if
Key
you
Farms
look
Park.
at their mobilization costs down there, 45,000 compared to most 21,000, so it could be maneuvering to
Yeah.
best fit their operations.
Yeah, one place to another. Any other questions on this? Then we'll call and vote. All in favor of the resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next. Next we have a resolution, R 14323, authorizing acceptance of 2023 street and park improvement bids. We have a motion to approve.
Move to approve 142-23.
Moved by Kim, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Don. To mention, we try to get about 4 miles a year here down, and we lumped in, we got parks projects, parking lots, various things. What are the amendments on here that this references? I didn't see the amendments in here.
Yeah, so this one also has a budget amendment tied to it, and the budget amendment is, so what we're looking at for this particular contract is to award it to Payne and Dolan in the amount of $2,942,312.63. So
Did you get two bids on this one too, or?
yes, the same two contractors bid on both projects. And the budget amendment tied to this is moving $3.2 million from Fish Hatchery Road project, which came in under budget considerably. And that money is being transferred into the general street resurfacing CIP. So that's freeing up $3.2 million of levy money that the city has budgeted for street resurfacing. So that $3.2 million stays in the general street resurfacing CIP, and then, Alder Jetzer was mentioning, the city historically budgets $1 million to $1.5 million a year on street resurfacing. So next year we budgeted that, so we'd have 3.2 plus our budgeted amount. So that 3.2 remains in street resurfacing as long as Common Council doesn't decide to use it somewhere else or.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. Not a good idea.
So let me ask this, the 3.2. First of all, I'm going to quantify that when you see Dan Barr and Tom Clouder, please thank them because they they stopped this thing and it was getting out of hand, and they rebid it, and as much as former Mayor Sean Pfaff likes to badmouth them, it's 3.2 million, I don't know he ever.
Fish Hatchery Road, you mean?
Yes, I don't think he ever does anything. So that aside, was the 3.2 million, was that leftover? We borrowed that much money.
I think it was the good engineering design.
I won't argue with that. I won't agree with it.
And that money had,
I couldn't agree more, yeah. But
In addition to
in addition to,
Dan Barr and Tom Clovis.
yeah, okay.
I mean, that's interesting, because I remember reading news stories that advertised the Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction as like $22 million or something, and I looked at, like, I don't remember, there was a Public Works agenda packet from like June of 21 or something, and that was like the final payment, and it was just barely over 30 million. So to say that there's 3.2 million left and we're under budget was a
I think they
surprise
added
to me.
some water and sewer reconstruction money into that. That was just the streets portion of it.
Okay.
and with this resolution, so there's the $3.2 million budget amendment, and then also there's $12,610 for sanitary sewer budget amendment, and then also a $22,560 budget amendment for stormwater on this project. So that's moving money within those funds over to this project to cover those costs.
Let me ask you a question. It's not fair to ask you this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Is this helping us catch up, with maintenance we hadn't been doing on our things we hadn't been getting done? I know it's not really fair to ask you this, but what's your sense of that?
Yeah, this project, as I previously mentioned, is lumping the work that wasn't done in 2022. So that the streets all, and I believe there's 23 streets.
It's 29, I think.
Is it 29?
Yeah. Well, that's what the first introduction.
Yep. So in the referral sheet, it's 29 streets, and it's, I believe, 3 basketball courts and a parking lot that are getting repaved. So 29 streets include streets that should have been done in 2022 and streets in 2023. So we are catching up for the work that wasn't completed last year.
Makes sense. Can we put in provision that when trucks are leaving their facilities, they got to sweep them off so they're not leaving all the fist-sized rocks in the bike lane on McKee Road for them to dodge every day?
You should have done that in the
coming home from
specs
work.
before they bid.
Yeah.
That'll be a change order.
They come around the corner out of Commerce Drive and turn left onto McKee, and it's always full of rocks.
And our streets team is aware of that. So our street sweeper, I rode with him a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned that same intersection, and he cleans it once a week for that. And he's like, I could be here every day doing just that intersection with the truck, but he hits that area once a week, which is more than normal, just due to the trucks. Because of the intersection being shut down.
Yeah, I rode home at night. I'm on the sidewalk there because I can't get home there.
That's a common theme, though. I mean, bike lanes being on the outside, all the motor vehicle traffic pushes everything into the bike lanes. Plus, any tree canopy, they're going to drop right into the bike lanes, and it's always an adventure.
Yeah, that one is. Okay, I'm sorry, getting off track. Any other questions for Tim on this? This is a substantial investment in our city, which is what I like seeing a good investment. Our taxpayer, they see this is something they see they make use of this every day, a wide range of streets. So. Any other questions?
I'll just say, I think, Don, you mentioned this in the past too, about be careful adding lane miles, because it does add additional, maintenance burden to us. And I think in one of Mayor Richardson's last budgets or CIPs, he specifically said the city's committed to ever increasing amounts for street resurfacing, but it's probably not enough. So, I mean, I guess you can argue that it's a good investment, or you can argue that we should try and rein it in as much as possible.
Yeah, but these aren't adding any lane miles.
No, they're not, but, I mean, it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
You know, if you're thinking about adding more, think twice.
Yeah, Bill, yeah, that's a very good point, when we, no subdivisions go in and there's a trail through there, path, well, Parks has to, ends up plowing that all, or, it's additional. So if the city grows, we need to increase our future maintenance dollars. All right, any other questions on this resolution?
Not in particular resolution, very supportive of it. Gotta keep up with the roads, good investment. Tim, do you have some sort of asset management plan? Kind of get at what Bill and what was kind of mentioned, getting this money, and we got at some 22 stuff we should have been done in 22, tells me we're falling behind. But do you have an asset management plan that says, based on age, deterioration, or something, we should be having X amount of miles of resurface, X amount of miles of reconstruct? Or are we just kind of going by the same, if I throw 3 million in it, I'll get a rough number here, but I'm gonna fall behind based on inflation and costs and.
Yeah, so what I guess, haven't been able to find is exactly that. The city really doesn't have that. Where I previously worked, we had a pavement maintenance plan where we looked at what the city all owns. We broke the city up into 5 different zones, and we wanted to hit a street once every 10 years. So we figured out what it would take to do that. So after, I guess next year we want to look into that, like create something where, hey, we have 140 miles within the city, X miles need to be chip sealed, X miles need to be pulverized and redone. What's it going to take to keep up so we can get 30 years out of our roads? We're also looking at different treatments too. You don't want to just hit a street once it's deteriorated. As soon as it's resurfaced, so these streets, you want to be crack sealing within 2 years, because that's as soon as the cracks open up, the water gets in and deteriorates the road. Crack sealing's the cheapest, so you want to hit that street as soon as those cracks appear, and that'll prevent that road from deteriorating that much faster by doing that. So we want to kind of come up with, hey, when we resurface the street 2 years later, we'll crack seal, hit it, maybe another crack seal 2 years, a fog seal, then chip seal a couple times. Then hopefully by year 30, you're pulverizing. So yeah, we will be taking a closer look at that and coming up with a plan and kind of getting a handle on how much that will cost. Is $1 million that the city's historically budgeted enough to do that? Probably not, but we need to get an idea on how long we want our roads to last, and what it's going to take financially to do that.
Mr. Wilburn might remember, I seen we had a pavement management system where they would evaluate the condition. Do we still have that?
Yeah,
We got a road grading map.
Right.
I don't know who.
That's how they prioritize.
How often is that
Yeah.
updated?
So it should be updated, I think every 2 years. WisDOT requires us to do that.
Interesting.
We'll be doing it actually shortly, because I think it's due to the state by December. So typically in, I think, August and September, our street supervisor, Mark, will be riding the street. It was Ross, so it'll probably be both Ross and Zach and Mark riding the streets, rating the roads, and then inputting that into the WisDOT's database. So,
So if they're gonna do that every 2 years, that's the perfect opportunity to take an inventory about which streets need, like you say,
yeah,
crack sealing and stuff.
what treatment and, crack sealing and what needs to be resurfaced. And how we did it previously, or in my previous city I worked for, we did zones. So if we went into a neighborhood, we hit all the streets. So you're not getting a call like, hey, my neighbor's street got done. Why isn't mine getting done? And you're just all over the city, which is one, expensive because the contractors mowing here and here and here. So there's a cost savings associated with that. You're not tearing up different parts of the city, you're just kind of inconveniencing an area, and then also everyone's street kind of gets done at the same time, or some form of treatment gets done. So something we'll take a look at and evaluate it if that's something we want to do here, or kind of keep it how the city's done, just sporadic.
Well, that's, we'll leave that up to, and we'll trust you, that you want to change that plan. Make the case to us, likely we'd support it. Question for you, and maybe Don knows this too. How much do we get from the state, and basically from the gas tax for maintaining our roads in the city?
That I don't know. I'd have to.
I'm curious what that is, because we should all go towards this, and is it half of what we need, or give me a sense, because that's my one.
I've read that nationwide gas tax pays for ballpark half of all of the road work that's done in the U.S. I don't know how that breaks down within any, whether that's federal and state roads, but local municipalities are suffering. I don't know.
Because what we get, I think, is based on our miles of road in the city. I think I don't know the formula.
Yeah, it's lane miles, yeah.
And can that be used for maintenance, or is that only for?
No. I think it's for maintenance. It strictly has to be used for maintenance.
Okay. Florida, I believe it was just for new improvements, not for maintenance. They didn't allow us.
Oh, I think it was for maintenance.
You can look at the CIP and see whether the resurfacing is coming out of the tax levy or if that's got external funding.
Some of it is. Well, for next meeting, if you can find that, it'd be interesting. Sure. We'd like to formulate a long-term strategy. I hate emergencies, and I don't want us to fall behind.
They just did the budget, didn't they? When I was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So any other questions on this? Then we'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R-142-23, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Announcements. Our next meeting is Monday, October 21st. I believe everyone's going to be here except Don. Okay. So anything else? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ken. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6.